Mr. Potter. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Monday, February 10th, 2020.
Commissioner Villegas, Garcia, James, Davis, and Caloza are present. President James, we do have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning, John Olinger, Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Michael Patnay, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, Jay Wong, Street Lighting.
Good morning, this is Dale Burgoyne,
Bureau of Sanitation. Good morning, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we did receive a speaker card under general public comment. We also received a speaker card on item number 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8, and 6 as well for today's agenda. No commentary under the Neighborhood Council commentary section.
Okay, we'll start with general public comment. Mr. Sachs?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs, and I hope you all had a good weekend. But actually, that meeting on Friday left a bad taste in my mouth. And I just wanted to revisit a couple of things, if you don't mind, about that race for hope. So it was mentioned that you like to know what's going on in other communities. Do you actually know what's going on in the community around Southern California, USC, Mr. Davis? Are you aware of the upcoming work that's going to be done around that area, the revitalization, you're aware of that whole project that's going to go on, like for 20 blocks? And are you aware of the work that's going to go on in the Vermont corridor by Southwest College that is going to go on? Because a lot of people in the community don't get aware of that stuff. But if you're aware, that's fine. Has anybody, I mean, the woman who was arguing about the race, essentially she said she didn't want the race to end. She was just looking for a different route, and she was looking for 3 years. And so I was wondering if anybody went out there and looked at other other remedies for that street. Could you have Googled the map? Could you have gone out there and looked? Could you have taken a bus out there and looked at the neighborhood? If you're fine with stuff that goes on in your neighborhood, that's fine, and I understand neighborhoods change. But essentially, she's been trying to get a change for 3 years, and it's the fees that are going to be paid. They used to have the city council used to do fee waivers, where they waive the fees for the cost of the event. So that's not included because you're only giving a permit out. And so I'm wondering who's going to pay, because government is the people, or the people are the government. So one way or the other, people always pay. It doesn't matter what the community.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. That'll close general public comment. Agenda item number 5, Authority for Expenditure, CR&R Incorporated, Sanitation, and the Office of Accounting are requesting board approval on the execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $350,000. That's a newly adjusted amount of $2,593,880 to pay for the processing and marketing of residential blue bin materials from Harbor and Western Los Angeles watersheds. The proposed increase is due to volatile market conditions occurring throughout the term of the agreement. The term of the agreement covers the services performed from August 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, last year. Secondly, authorize myself or 2 members of the Board of Public Works to execute the contract after approval as to form has been obtained by the city attorney, Mr. Ruiz. Actually, Mr. Sachs on number 5.
Yes, thank you again. So there's a couple things about here. So when the contract was first approved, it was for like $2,250,000 to pay for the processing and marketing of residential blue bin materials, because another one of these items has curbside delivery or curbside pick collection program. So is the blue bin program different from the curbside collection program? And the other part of this that's really interesting is that this work was from August to June of 2019, and we're in February of 2020, and it's coming before the board for an additional $350,000 in funding because of the volatile market. The market's always been volatile. I mean, paper recycling has dropped, cardboard has dropped. The foreign countries that used to take recycling goods have stopped taking recycling goods because they figured they're getting screwed. You're just, the city of Los Angeles taking their trash and sending it overseas, out of sight, out of mind. And so that's part of their, I guess, greening of Los Angeles. It all depends on what you mean by green. And so just a matter of how much time comes before you, because item number 5, and additionally, how many watersheds are there in the city of Los Angeles? And do they refer to the county also? Because item number 7 refers to West Los Angeles, North Central, and again, South Central Los Angeles watershed. So it's just knowing maybe the watersheds, are they an overlay of other areas that affect what goes on in the districts? I mean, and are they an overlay of the council districts themselves? How many council districts are in each one of the watersheds? And how that cost
2 minutes.
is shared among the council districts?
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. On number 5, Mr. Ruiz. Welcome back, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, President James, Commissioner Garcia, Davis, Calosa, and Villegas, Executive Officers, City Attorney, and Bureau Representatives. I'm Martin Ruiz with LA Sanitation and Environment. LA Sanitation is requesting to amend the letter agreement and authority for expenditure 195084557M with CR&R Incorporation to pay for the processing and marketing services of the residential blue bin materials collected from the harbor and West Los Angeles washes from August 1st, 2018 to June 30, 2019. The original not to exceed amount of $2,243,880 is amended to $2,543,880, accounting for $300,000 increase over the original amount. The original letter of agreement with CR to process and market residential blue bin materials from the harbor and West Los Angeles was approved by the board on May 14, 2019, and the original amount was noticed to exceed $2,243,880. Unfortunately, due to volatile market conditions occurring throughout the term of the agreement, the cost incurred by LA San has now exceeded the original not to exceed amount by $273,323. LA San did pay to CNR $2,199,527, with the remaining amount of $44,352.39 in the original letter of agreement. The total balance to be paid to CR&R is $317,675.96. Therefore, LA San is amending the letter agreement by $300,000 more for an amended not to exceed the amount of $2,583,880.00. The request increase amount of $300,000 and the $44,352 and 39 cents remaining from the original letter agreement will pay the remaining balance of $317,675.96. This will cover invoices from January to June 2019 from the Harbor Wayshed and June 2019 for Los Angeles Wayshed. With this conclude my presentation.
Thank you. You covered everything that I can think of. Anybody else have any questions? We know it's a $350,000 increase because of the market, so we appreciate the summary. I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 5, seconded by Commissioner Villegas. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 5. Thank you, Mr. Ruiz. Any issue sending number 5 forthwith? We'll send number 5 forthwith. Number 6, authority for expenditure, also from sanitation and the Office of Accounting, are requesting board approval and execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $4 million to pay for the processing costs for the receiving, processing, and anaerobic digestion of organic waste from the City of Los Angeles Curbside Collection Program. The term of this authority for expenditure covers services from August 25th, 2019 through the end of this fiscal year, which is June 30th, 2020, with a one-year renewal option. Secondly, authorize myself or 2 members of the Board of Public Works to execute the associated service agreement on number 6, Mr. Sachs.
Again, just the devil in the details. This was from August, so it doesn't start, you mentioned at the end of the fiscal year, but the fiscal year actually starts July 1st. So this is like 6 weeks, 5 weeks. No, it's 8 weeks less than a fiscal year. And I believe in number 5, the gentleman making the presentation said the contract was from June. I don't know if it was the end of June or did he mean the beginning of June, because it's another month. It's another month, which is another 12 weeks. So that's like almost 2.5 months of fiscal year that's not included in these contracts. Is there a contingency fee adopted with these contracts at all? Or do they have to come back for additional expenditures all the time? I'm just wondering if it would be easier to, if the contracts contained a contingency fee, and you would save some paperwork that way and save some time on some of these items. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. On number 6, Mr. Roscoe.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, President James, Commissioners Garcia, Davis, Caloza, and Villegas, Bureau Representatives, City Attorney, and Executive Officer. My name is James Rosca, Environmental Engineering Associate with LA San and Environment. LA San is here requesting the authority for expenditure with CR&R in the amount of $4 million for the receipt, processing, and anaerobic digestion of organic waste. So if I could speak to this to correct the gentleman's comment, this is for a separate contract. This is for the processing of organic waste material, not for the recycling commodity market, so for green bin material. For some history on our organic waste program, per the Mayor's Green New Deal, we have goals to reach zero waste by 2025, as well as to establish a citywide residential collection program for organic waste by the end of 2021. Additionally, legislation from the state, SB 1383, mandates and requires the collection and processing of organic waste in order to divert it away from landfills. In order to meet our zero waste goals as well as to comply with these regulations, sanitation is in the process of releasing a new RFP for organic waste, and that's because our current contracts do not have the ability to process food waste, which is one of the major components of organic waste. We can currently only process green waste. CR&R did previously have a contract with the city. It was executed in August of 2016 to demonstrate their anaerobic digestion process. It was a 2-year contract with a 1-year renewal option, which we did take, which is why the contract expired on August of 2019, which explains the term of execution being from August 2019 of this year through the end of the fiscal year with the 1-year renewal option. For some background on CR&R's process, anaerobic digestion is the process where organic waste is broken down and turned into renewable natural gas as well as other marketable, beneficially reused products for agriculture and farming. The facility is planned to have 4 anaerobic digesters, with currently 2 of them already being built with a capacity of 500 tons per day. The natural gas that they produced is used to fuel their fleet of clean fuel vehicles, and any excess gas that they produce is being introduced into Southern California Gas's pipeline for other uses. Over the term of the previous contract, CR&R received and processed approximately 31,400 tons of organic waste from the city. This is a combination of residential green bin waste, which is at the moment just yard trimming waste, as well as food waste and other organics that are collected from a number of different programs, including Curb Your Food Waste LA, our pilot program to 18,000 households where residents are allowed to put food waste in their green bin. Organic waste collection that's taking place at LAX Airport, which has expanded to a number of the airline lounges and concessionaires throughout the airport, as well as organic waste collection that's happening here at City Hall at the Homeboy Diner, as well as at the LA Mall. The term of this LOA, as I mentioned, will be from August 24th, 2019 through the end of this fiscal year, with the option to extend for another additional year with the same terms. The city will provide 20 to 60 tons per day of commingled organic waste, which would cover the amount of organic waste that we're currently collecting from our existing programs, as well as some additional contingency as we expand to additional programs, such as residential food scrap collection at farmers markets, which we're looking to implement at the end of this year. So in order to meet all those various requirements, we're requesting authority for expenditure to continue utilizing CR&R, who has continued the services since the expiration of the contract, because they're the only vendor that could handle the organic waste we're already currently collecting. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Davis and then Commissioner Coloza.
In terms of the inability for the current contractor to handle food waste, is that what I heard you say?
Yes, so we had 3 contracts for our green bin program. 2 of the vendors that we're contracted with, Waste Management and Rainbow Environmental, are only able to process green waste. Their process is a mulching operation, so it's basically just chipping and grinding of the yard trimmings. There isn't the additional like biological process which breaks down the material to create the byproducts. CR&R was the only vendor that had the ability to accept both food and green, and since their contract expired, we're using the letter of agreement to continue services with them while we're in the process of releasing a new RFP to cover both services.
So CRR does have the capabilities of transposing the food waste into mulch or whatever they do.
Yeah, they produce the natural gas which they use to fuel their vehicles.
They are our current contractor.
They had a current contract that expired in August of last year, and this LOA is to just continue the same terms of services, just at different rates.
So once we acquire a new vendor, they will no longer be providing service to us.
Yes, and they would have the ability to propose on that new request for proposals to then execute a longer-term contract. This letter of agreement is just to get us through the term until those new contracts can be executed.
What's unclear to me is the status and performance of food waste. I was under the impression that currently food waste was used into mulch or whatever it is that they transform it into, and that in fact we were using some of these substances for our farm in Bakersfield to cultivate the crop that we have there. Is that not true?
The Kern County farm, or the Green Acres farm up in Kern County, the material that's sent there is the digested biosolids from our wastewater treatment plant.
I see.
That's separate from what's being collected on the green waste side.
I see. So what is it that we currently do with the food waste that we acquire?
So CR&R is the vendor that has been processing the food waste that we've been collecting from our existing pilot programs, and it's being combined with residential green waste as well, because they have the capacity to process both together. So CR&R is the vendor that's been processing.
And do they get it from the black cans, or they get it from both the black cans and the green cans?
Currently, the way that we have our food waste program set up is food waste is being collected separately
I see.
from like LAX, Homeboy Diner, and the LA Mall. For the program that is being piloted with the residential Curb Your Food Waste LA, only those residents have been educated, instructed, and permitted to put food waste in their green bin. All other residents in the city should be using their green bin just for yard trimmings due to those constraints that I said previously about which vendors being able to only take yard trimmings.
Do we take from the black can in the residential, I would suspect, food waste and process it in some form or another?
Currently, for our black bin program, we only have vendors that just provide landfilling services. We do currently have a request for proposals that we're evaluating for black bin, and we have had vendors propose the ability to extract the organic portion of the black bin waste. or of the organic waste that's currently in the black bin. But that's still being done as part of the overall review and consideration of those contracts. So currently, any organic waste that is being placed in the black bin is going to the landfill for disposal, which is why it's important for us to be able to continue working with this vendor who can handle the food waste. And then as we expand the RFP, once we can expand the residential program citywide for the green bin, then that way we'll be able to take that food waste out of the black bin, provide, citywide education and outreach on the new program for residents to be able to segregate the food waste, and then have it be collected and processed for beneficial reuse.
So this proposal then seeks to allow individuals to integrate both food waste and the green waste in the green can.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Caloza.
Thank you, President James. Thanks for your presentation. I thought it was really thorough. And thanks to sanitation for helping us get to our sustainability goals, which I know is a priority for both the board and, of course, the mayor's office. I just had two follow-up questions for you. Can you share the timeline of the RFP that you mentioned, knowing that this is just what we're doing as a temporary measure until we get there?
So currently, the RFP is with Bureau of Contract Administration for review. We're hoping to release the RFP on LA Bevin in the upcoming months. And then we will have to go through a very robust and quick evaluation, negotiation, execution process. Our intention would be to execute contracts by July 1st, 2021. And at the latest by December 31st, 2021, so that we can have the contracts in place with the vendors as we get ready to implement the citywide program for the residential green bin and food waste.
Okay. So you said coming months for the RFP. Do you think it would be before the board, like around summertime or fall?
I think we're hoping to get it before June.
Okay.
So then that way we'll already be doing the work to gather the evaluation team, get all of the kind of initial groundwork ready to go, so that once the proposers are basically solicited and they're able to give us their proposals, then we can do a very robust, thorough evaluation.
Got it. That's really helpful in terms of sharing the timeline. And so if I understand it correctly, since the contracts will be executed July 2021 and this AFE is from June through June 2020, so we will see another AFE
Yes.
to continue these services until we're through executing the new contracts?
Yes, so
Okay.
the term currently is through June 2020 with a one-year renewal option. This would give us the ability to renew with CR&R on the exact same terms of this LOA. We would still return to the board to request the authority for expenditure in the new fiscal year, but the overall budget we wouldn't adjust it. The $4 million that we've currently budgeted would be already estimated through that 2021 date.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Caloza. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. Thank you, President James. My questions were also about the RFP. I was going to ask, I was going to ask, are you opening this up to other, like Recycla, folks that we do business with in our Recycla program, or is it going to be opened up to other providers? I know that there isn't a lot out there, so if you could just clarify that.
Yeah, we're going to be open up the ability to bid and propose to anyone. They don't have to be an existing vendor. They don't have to be an existing facility. They could also propose that as part of their process, whether they have a new technology, a new process, or some other way to manage both the collection of green waste and food waste simultaneously. We would still request that they meet the Recycla city facility certification, just so that we do have that consistency across the board. And if there were a vendor that could come on through our process, then Recycla would also be able to then utilize them for the same services through the facility certification. So yeah, we're trying to have a holistic approach. I mean, this is primarily for residential material, but we would have the same requirements in terms of enclosure, safety, all the things that go into the certification plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas, anything further? I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 6, seconded by Commissioners Garcia, Villegas, and Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 6. Thank you, Mr. Roscoe.
Thank you very much.
Any issues sending number 6 forthwith? We'll send number 6 forthwith. Good job on answering the questions. Agenda item, well, I think I want to get to number 7, but Authority for Expenditure, CR&R Incorporated, Sanitation and Office of Accounting are requesting board approval and execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $12,100,000 to pay for the processing and marketing of residential blue bin materials from Harbor, West Los Angeles, North Central, and South Los Angeles waste sheds. The term of the authority for expenditure shall cover services for this fiscal year, that's July 1, 2019, through June 30th, 2020. Secondly, authorize myself or 2 members of the Board of Public Works to execute the associated service agreement. The funding source for this is there as well. Mr. Sachs on number 7.
Yes, thank you again. So 7 and 5, they're both processing and marketing. Excuse me. And thank you, Sheila Kuehl, for clarifying the word "and." How much is for processing and how much is for marketing? Because they're 2 different things. And this one is Harbor, West Los Angeles, North Central, and South Los Angeles watersheds, which is what I said. And number 5 is for Harbor and Western Los Angeles watershed. So I'm thinking West Los Angeles and Western Los Angeles watersheds are pretty much the same, unless Western is further west than west. I don't know. And if that's the case, what about the North Central and South Los Angeles watersheds in these agreements? And as you look at the information down below, everything is the same except for the unit number, which is on 5 is 60250, and on 7 is 50SX82. So also, the city's franchise agreement, does this cover all the franchises that are used for picking up the blue bins, or is there just a limited amount? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Mr. Potter on number 7.
Good morning, President James, Commissioners Garcia, Davis, Caloza, and Villegas, Executive Officer, City Attorney, and Bureau Representative. I'm Robert Potter with LA Sanitation and Environment. LA San is requesting the authority to encumber $12,100,000 on AE 20508-759M to CR&R to process nearly 470 tons per day of residential curbside recyclables collected from the West Los Angeles, Harbor, North Central, South Los Angeles waste sheds, not watersheds, from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2021. LA San collects over 200,000 tons per year of blue bin materials from about 750,000 single-family homes and apartment complexes of 4 units or less. At this moment, the city has 2 material recovery facilities processing the blue bin materials. The first is Athens, Inc., servicing East and West Valley waste sheds, and the second is Potential Industries, servicing West Los Angeles, Harbor, North Central, and South Los Angeles waste sheds. It is worth mentioning that Potential is a subcontractor for CR&R. For many years, LA San enjoyed a profitable market, but due to China's strict import bans and restrictions, which is requiring a minimum of 0.05% contamination, the environmental concerns from many countries, especially Asia, and the diminishing market values of recycled commodities, a profitable market is no longer possible at this time. Previous contracts did not reflect reflect the previous mentioned challenge. Therefore, LA San had to end contracts and establish short-term temporary letters of agreement with authorities for expenditures to provide uninterrupted essential blue bin services to 750,000 residents. At the same time, LA San developed a request for proposal for the processing and marketing of residential blue bin materials collected from the City of Los Angeles wastesheds. The RFP was approved by the board on January 10th, 2020, and posted on LA Bavin on January 23rd, 2020. We also had a mandatory pre-proposal meeting on February 5th at the Public Works Building, and the deadline to submit proposal will be March 18th. LA Sound will evaluate proposals and select the most qualified proposer, meeting requirements, and negotiate long-term contracts. Depending on the number of proposers, LA Sound expects to have selected proposers for proposed within 6 months from now. CR&R is located in Wilmington, which is part of the, or potential is located in Wilmington, which is part of the Harbor Wayshed. It can process and market the volume of recyclables collected in the West Los Angeles, Harbor, North Central, and South Los Angeles wayshed. Potential is equipped with optical sorters that helps increase capture and recovery of recycled materials and is located near a freeway and very close to the Port of Los Angeles. The agreement, we're executing an LOA for 2 years. This is an AE for 1 year. We'll have to come back for another AE in the next budget year. While LASAN is working on establishing long-term contracts through the RFP process. There is no impact on the general fund. The total funding for this project for the 2 years would be $24.2, but this is a $12,100,000 AE for the $200,000 for 2 years, and the funding is through the Solid Waste Resource Revenue Fund. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Potter, for the explanation. I'm just going to add for the record, colleagues, before I call on you if you have questions. I did ask sanitation to submit the board report that's attached just because I wanted the record for this expenditure to have a more robust written record in case anyone were to want to review it and get a sense of the basis for the expenditure. Commissioner Coloza.
Thank you, President James. But to clarify, the AFE today is only for $12 million, but your board report is for $24 million?
That's correct. So the LOA, the letter of agreement, will cover 2 fiscal years, and the AEs are only annual. So it's $24.2 million over 2 years and $12.1 million for 1 year.
So it's the letter agreement covers the whole deal, basically.
Yes. That's correct.
But you break it up into 2 separate years of funding. So you have an LOA for the 2 years of the $24 million, and then you're going to have 2 authorities for expenditure for $12.1 each.
That is correct.
Okay.
But what we're acting on today is just the first half, the $12 million.
That is correct.
Okay. I would have. Thank you for President James for having this added. So I'll take a look at it after. It would have been nice to have seen it previously as well. Can you clarify why we didn't combine this AFE with the first AFE that was brought to us that's also on blue bin materials?
The $350,000? Yes. It's by fiscal year. So the first one for the $350,000 was for fiscal year 18-19, and we were just extending the authority to expend the additional $350,000 to cover the expenses for that fiscal year. This $12 million is for fiscal year 19-20, and AEs are only within the 1 year, the fiscal year period. So that was just to cover the inflated costs related to recycling that was in the fiscal year 18-19.
And can you also just elaborate on the RFP timeline for this one? Is it on the same track as what your previous colleague mentioned for the green bin, or is it different?
No, actually, it's farther along. So we got approval from the board on January 10th. On January 23rd, it was on LA Bavin. February 5th, we actually had a meeting. We had proposers show up for the mandatory pre-proposal meeting. We had, I think, 6 or 7 vendors show up for that meeting. The March 18th is the deadline for submissions. Once those submissions are done, then an evaluation team will evaluate, and we anticipate on the fast side about 6 months to complete the RFP. So if we're successful, the second AE may either be a short period of time as we execute the new RFP or not needed at all. So if we can, well, it'll still be needed a little bit, but maybe 2-3 months into the next one.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. I won't take additional time here in our board meeting, but will you follow up with me afterward? I'd like a briefing on this item.
Of course.
Thanks.
Of course.
Just given the large amount. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Caloza. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you, President James. Just for clarification, we heard about 2 potential RFPs, and I think Commissioner Caloza wanted you to clarify that. And I don't feel that you provided me enough information. So if you could just clarify the tasks that are going to be included in the RFP that are, supposed to be done by March.
The proposal
Yeah.
should be returned to us by March.
Okay. What is the distinction between both?
Well, just so we're clear, the RFP is for the processing of all recyclables within the city of LA. So it's a proposal to accept, process, market, and fulfill the responsibilities of recycling for either a return to the city or a cost to the city at either side of that.
Okay. And then the other RFP that your colleague mentioned is just for dealing with food waste.
Oh, okay, yes. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, just for our purposes, I understand where you're getting where you're at, but for purposes of anyone that's listening to us as well, just the distinction between both RFPs, and you all may talk about it because it's second nature and it's your job, but just for any other folks that just aren't as familiar, just the distinction between both. So I appreciate what you just said.
Of course. And so the recycling, this blue bin is blue bin material. So this would be for the processing of all blue bin. The previous one was for organics, which would be the green bin. So they're 2 separate commodities that are processed separately. Yeah. So there'll be 2 different RFPs with, it could be some similar vendors, but more than likely different vendors bidding on the RFPs.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right, and then I just wanted to make a comment. Because we are in such need for this industry and recycling and in food waste, as we can tell, we have 3 items, and we do not have enough vendors, or this is because we obviously do business with CR&R, but I don't feel like we have enough folks in this industry that are able to do the processing for food waste just yet. But that's to tell with this with this RFP that'll be coming out. But I just think it's telling that we're just doing business right now with one particular vendor.
Well, we'll actually be here Wednesday for another AE with another vendor that deals with food waste and the processing of food waste. So there's 2 people.
That's good.
There's
Yeah.
2 people in the market right now, and we anticipate when we do the RFP that there will be a lot of interest in it, and hopefully we'll get a lot of good bids and good vendors.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Commissioner Davis.
So in terms of the blue bin, we're talking about substances such as canned sodas, right?
Yeah, correct.
Bottle.
Yeah, it'd be fibers, which is cardboard and papers, cartons, glass, bottles, metals, PET, HDPE, plastics like your Tide bottles, your soda bottles, those kind of things.
What kind of progress have we made heretofore in terms of helping to manage those blue bin items as it moves towards our goal of zero waste?
So the markets, like I said, the markets are very volatile in the acceptance of materials. So on the outreach side, we have an ambassador program that goes out and educates residents on their blue bin materials. So they do random samplings of communities, and those are identified by the materials being brought to the MRF. So we have a MRF that accepts our materials, and then they'll randomly do a visual inspection, and if they see a lot of contamination, which means there's the wrong materials, they'll identify the route. We'll go out to that route, meet with the residents, walk through the neighborhoods, hand out flyers, and try to reduce the contamination. It's a key component in offsetting the cost of recycling because we're charged by the tons that come in the door, whether they're perfect recycling or if it's contamination. So it's a way we target it. And then working with the industry to find better solutions and better materials that recycle better is a key component of what we do. So we're always engaging the ABA and the different organizations in trying to find a better marketable recyclable product.
Have we discovered that the blue bin items, perhaps among all of those that we have to manage, are perhaps the most difficult for us to achieve some recyclable processes that will help us to reach zero waste? Based basically, is it more difficult for us to manage these blue bin items than perhaps the green bin items, the environmental stuff, in terms of processing?
I think they're different challenges, but yes, I think there's some items in the blue bin that we're really targeting right now, trying to find solutions for. I mean, obviously the number one, which is the plastic bottles, and two, which is like your Tide bottles. There's a big market for those materials, high density polyethylene and PET.
What do we do with glass, for example? Some products are still in the glass bottles. What's the process for that?
It's recycled. It goes through a recycling process. So there's a vendor that, it's sorted through the line, it's packaged individually, and it's taken to a vendor that actually turns the glass into it recycles the glass and reuses it. So
okay. And then in terms of the plastics that you mentioned of before, what do we do with those?
They all go through a process of conversion, and they turn back into anything from new bottles to Levi's to anything that they can be recycled into.
Now, we don't have to worry about plastic bags, which is a phenomenon all of it in itself. Are they items that are urged to be placed in the blue bins? Plastic bags, for example. Plastic bags from the grocery store, including the fruit items where we put plastic bags there. Plastic bags from restaurants that we get our food in there. The styrofoams. What are we asking residents of Los Angeles to do as it relates to discarding those particular items? Are we asking them, in other words, to put them in the black container, or are we asking them to take those items and put them in the blue?
Okay, so there's a couple levels there. So each store that gives out a bag should have the ability to take back the bag. That's part of the requirement in California. But we don't want to see them throw the bags away, because when we changed the law on bags, we made bags that are reusable. These bags should last, 100 times. They are accepted in the blue bin program. They are hard to process. So at some point we'll have to look at how we do a better job of handling the bags, but they would go in the blue bin as part of our recycling.
Now, most of the reusable bags are a different material. I mean, even the Bureau of Sanitation has a reusable bag. I don't think it's plastic. And then I know in the grocery stores, particularly Ralph's and Whole Foods, when they give you a reusable bag, it's not plastic. It's a more substantive material,
Yes.
whatever it is. So I was unaware that plastic bags have been used over and over again in terms of those that we get from stores like Ralph's and other grocery stores, I thought.
No, when they did the bag ban, go ahead.
Mr. President, I kind of want to, these are very, very good questions, actually. If I may interrupt, I would like to kind of get us back more squarely before, we're approving what's before the board is essentially the first half of a $24 million agreement, $12 million, and then a year from now. And while certainly it's an important program, and the background discussion about what's involved and what goes into the blue bins and how it's treated, I think it's important and relevant for the board to consider. However, to kind of get us back to what we have, if I may recommend we have the Bureau, if the board wants, for the Bureau to come back and perhaps give a more detailed discussion of what goes into the blue bins and
Point
all
well
of that.
taken, and what I'll ask for is an individual discussion about
Okay.
that. And so, thank you for that dialogue, and that's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Thank you for the explanation, Mr. Potter, in the background. We appreciate it. I will make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 7, seconded by Commissioners Villegas and Davis. You'll have the briefing for Commissioner Caloza.
Of course.
Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 7. Any issue sending 7 forthwith? We'll send 7 forthwith. And Dr. Campos, that was on the authority for expenditure. The board report can just be attached as a supplemental. Yes. Thank you. Agenda item, thank you, Mr. Potter. Agenda item number 8 is an authority for expenditure for iSolutions Incorporated. This is Streets LA and accounting requesting board approval and execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $24,999. $1 short of that $25,000 for the training and programming provided by the vendor. The Board of Public Works has approved Streets LA's proposal to hire software firm iSolutions to develop an easy-to-use iOS smartphone app for staff who inspect service requests in MyLA 311. This sounds like we're on the road to more improvements. Ms. Manchik, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners and Board Representatives. Gina Mancha, Bureau of Street Services. This AFE is the follow-up to the LOA for this software firm that was adopted by the board on January 15th. And at that time, it was explained that this is going to create a lot of efficiencies and benefits. First of all, right now we need a smartphone and a tablet. The field inspection staff use both of those devices to access the 311 system for their inspection items. This new application will eliminate that. There will only be the need for the one smartphone, and it will be able to access 311 just through the smartphone. It will also increase inspection productivity, reduce turnaround times for the most commonly requested services, be able to interact with MyLA 311 service requests when cellular connectivity is unavailable. Also obtain turn-by-turn directions to navigate from one service request to another. And of course, there'll be reduced hardware and support costs by eliminating the need for two devices. At the board adoption of the LOA, it was estimated that field testing could begin in February 2020.
Thank you, and yes, we did sign off on this on the 15th. I signed the contract that day. So recognizing what we're doing going forward. Before we start with Commissioner Villegas, let me go ahead and take Mr. Sachs on his comments, and then we'll come back.
Yes, thank you again, Arnold Sachs, and I guess business to business again. But actually, my question is, you're going to approve almost $25,000 for training and programming to develop an easy-to-use iOS smartphone app for staff who inspect. Wouldn't that be part of the RFP? You'd put out a request for proposal to develop for a company to develop an easy-to-use app before you actually hire them, and then you'd have them come in. I can understand once they get part of the contract, they would have to come in and train the staff for the contract to use the new application if that's necessary. So you're actually paying the vendor for the training that's going to be provided by the vendor. Will that include paying for the staff to take time away from what they're normally going to do to be trained by the vendor? So you're actually double paying for the same. I mean, if you put out an RFP for a company to meet a request for proposal, you'd expect the company to come up with a program that would meet the request for proposal, and then part of the contract would include the training to use that device. If you don't train on the device, then essentially the device becomes useless. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs, Ms. Mancha, and Commissioner Villegas. Okay, Commissioner Villegas is good. I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 8. Is there a second? Commissioners Villegas and Caloza, any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 8. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any issue sending number 8 forthwith? We will send number 8 forthwith. Let's go to agenda item number 2. Let me make sure I've gotten all of my authorities for expenditure cleared. Okay, agenda item number 2 is a continued item, continued to this date. Council District 11 tree removal, 7800 through 7900 block of South Sepulveda Boulevard, recommending that the board first find that the tree removal classifies as operation, repair, maintenance, or minor alteration of existing street, sidewalk, and gutter involving negligible or no expansion of use beyond that previously existing and does not involve the removal of the scenic resource. Secondly, if the action is exempt under Article 3, Section 1, Class 1, Category 3, existing facilities of the City of Los Angeles Environmental Quality Act, CEQA guidelines from 2002. And third, that none of the exceptions to the use of a categorical exemption as set forth in Section 15300.2 of the state CEQA guidelines apply. And secondly, the recommendation was to deny the request for a no-fee permit to remove 6 additional Indian laurel fig, those are ficus trees, for sidewalk reconstruction. And then we asked at the last hearing for the supplemental report to note, as it does, that the board may consider alternative measures for sidewalk repair, which may include but not be limited to the denial or approval of the remaining 6 trees as identified in the tree removal permit application. Let's go to, let's see. Mr. Sachs, you have a card on number 2. I'm not going to start with you, though. Since we are continuing this item, Mr. Duckworth?
Yes, sir.
Let me see if I've got, you've got Mr. Monfett here today. There's a package that was submitted from the Westchester Streetscape Improvement Association. And let me give a 1 to 2 minute summary, and then I've got a question for you before we move along. So during the last hearing, your organization, the Westchester Streetscape Improvement Association, came in with a number of speakers and representatives from the community regarding the request to your original application for the removal of the subject 6 trees. There were 15, 9 of them were approved. There were the 6 that were the subject, and the reason they were the subject of the hearing was because of the recommended denial of the permit request by Streets LA. You came in essence, to appeal that denial with support from various aspects of the community, and there were at least 2, I think there were just 3 of us there that day. Were you there that day? You were there that day? Okay. Did we have all 5 of us that day?
No, I think there was 3 or 4.
There were 3 of us, I think.
I think 3 as well.
Okay. And so we moved it to today, but there was comment on the record about approving the appeal of the denial. In other words, granting the 6 trees to be removed. But I wanted to hold it on the table to send notice to the public that we actually might be considering allowing the removal of the trees, because the original board report sent the message that the recommendation was denial. That doesn't mean that it's automatically a denial, but I was concerned that the public in your community might read that as, oh, there's no need to show up because they're going to deny it anyway. So we continued it to today, and you've submitted a supplemental package that was a copy of your communication with the council office, of which you have no objection from, correct?
Right, that's
right.
correct.
Same here. Here's my question for you. Are you aware of, and I'm going to go through the speaker cards, and let me just tell you who I've got speaker cards from. Don Duckworth, Greg Monfett, Arnold Sachs, David Zone, Diane Scher, she spoke last time, Thomas K. Samek, and Sue Pirvin. Everybody, with the exception of Ms. Scher, indicate that they're against the recommendation for denial. After this notification that was posted, were you aware of any? I've got a letter from the Community Forest Advisory Council in a moment, and I'll get to that. But other than that, are you aware of any organizations or any, as we had offered, organized opposition to the position that the Westchester Streetscape Improvement Association has brought to us? I've got your packet of material, including the churches and the YMCA and
Chamber of Commerce.
The Chamber of Commerce and all that. But any that are supporting you, any opposition that you're aware of?
There was some discussion on next door neighbor that Sue Pirvin has followed, and there was a number of people supportive of us, and there was Mrs. Scheer and one other lady that were opposed.
Okay.
And that's all I am aware of.
That's what you're aware of?
Yes.
Okay. And then The issue I have and we'll hear this out, but my concern with the letter from the Community Forest Advisory Committee is I have no indication of any representative of this community, of your community, in the CFAC letter. And there's also no indication that they even heard the last hearing or had a representative at the last hearing, which I don't think they did. So that said,
and sir, if I may add to that, we did submit in our package of information petitions from 23 people that live immediately adjacent to these
right.
trees.
Thank you for that.
That were supportive. And again, Mrs. Pirvin will have some comments for the board about the results of her door-to-door canvassing of this neighborhood as well.
And the petitions that you have, and I was just going to, I'll confirm this with Streets LA, but the petitions that you have are the adjacent property owners that support the removal, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And there's another reference in your letter, and we'll get to this briefly with Mr. Monfett, about you use the term, I think, cookie sales, fundraising, and how can we, by denying the tree removal, these are ficus trees. And if Mr. Monfett and Mr. Banuelos can speak to this, but my experience, ficus trees continue to grow. Most trees do, unless they're dead or diseased. But your argument is, if we don't remove the trees and do the meander that's recommended, the tree's going to continue to grow and bust up the sidewalk, and we're putting the liability on you.
That's correct, sir.
All right. Mr. Monfett? Good morning. So you may have heard at the last hearing, did you have a chance to listen to the last hearing?
Did not.
Okay. At the last hearing, there was some issue, a little bit of discussion regarding the health of the trees, one way or the other, and the likelihood that if the trees are not removed, their maturity will continue to destroy the sidewalks, basically. You've got photos in your report, pretty clear of the conditions that we're in, and we also are aware of the record of the improvements that the Westchester Streetscape Improvement Association has done over the years. Would you, can you take 3 to 4 minutes just to provide a summary of your findings since you were not here last time?
I can, and what I'd like to do first is just pass out some photos to the 5 commissioners. I'll give it. First off, good morning, President James. Good to see you. Very nice to see you, commissioners.
Welcome back to the board.
Bureau rep, city attorney. Feels good to be here. I was here for many years, and I appreciate everything that the city's offered for me. I've been involved with this project for 19 years, 15 years as Assistant Chief Forester for Urban Forestry. We walked through this project, we walked through the community, we walked through approvals. The master plan was adopted in 2008. We were just following Ruth Galanther and Bill Rosenthal, and in the 12-13 fiscal year, we had a celebration out there and a kickoff at the first $1 million with Councilwoman Maxine Waters and Bill Rosenthal before he unfortunately left us. You know, and I've been involved, we pretty much approved this whole project, but it took funding, and the funding's all from WISA, not a dollar of it's from the city. The funding for the building and for the maintenance of this project. So over this time, the last 5 years, I worked for WISA as a consultant. I've been retired for 5 years. As a result of them, they've repaired miles of sidewalks and planted hundreds of trees, a net gain of about 534 trees in the specific area. So WISA's done a really good job up there. But regarding this block, I mean, I think we all know Sepulveda Boulevard, driving into LAX, because anybody we talk to knows it. When I'm at a party or I'm somewhere and they find out what I do, they always mention Sepulveda Boulevard. Now, the sidewalks were just a disaster out there. The only stretch of the block we have left is the east side between 78th and 79th. And there's 8 ficuses there. The other trees were just smaller trees. 2 of them have been approved. The we're here today about the 6 ficus trees, and as I pass out the photos, I've got the trees numbered in the top right corner where the trees are, and just for reference, we're going from north to south, starting at 78th Street. We got tree 1 through tree 8, and I'm following the numbering. Urban forestry staff, I believe, followed as well. And you'll see in there, in the various trees, that the curb and the gutters pushed up and they're damaged. There's no possible way you're going to repair any of those gutters or get the water to flow on that street or even prevent any further damage with these trees. The trees are going to continue to do damage out there. And there's some of it, as you can see in the photos that are there. I don't want to take the time going through each and every one, but like on tree 1, for example, you look at the fence behind the tree, and that's just 8 feet and 8 inches behind the back of the sidewalk. I know the board report talks about a 12-foot dedication. Maybe there is, I don't know. But you got private property fences ranging from 8 feet, 8 inches to 11 feet going down the road. There's nowhere in there you've got 12 feet, at least where these trees are. Furthermore, in the board report, and I think urban forestry staff did a good job, if you look at the board report on page 3, they reference all 8 trees, Indian laurel trees, being from poor to fair health. So really they word it from fair to poor, is how it's worded. It's not from fair to good. They're not calling them in fair to good health. The trees aren't in that good of health out there.
I'm sorry, repeat that, the trees what?
The trees are not in good health out there. And I concur with staff's report that they're really in fair to poor health. That's what's stated on page 3 of the board report. In addition, they approved tree 6 and 7 because there's a lower grade out there, but on tree 8 you have that same grade. I was out there the other day. It's a 2-foot drop on the back side of the sidewalk with 11 feet to a block wall, private property wall. So on a 12-to-1 slope, you're going to be stepping down when you come down from that end, and that's where the bus stop is on Sepulveda Boulevard. And Sepulveda Boulevard is a major street. You know, on one of the trees, I think it's on tree 2 or 4, you've got roots 25 feet away from it that are 6 inches in diameter. It's exposed in the grassy area there. They're going to be, can you put sidewalks behind those trees? Sure. You can cut the roots and put sidewalks behind those trees. It's going to make them vulnerable for falling over in the street, in my opinion. We're not going to be able to repair the curbs and gutters. You can repair the curbs and gutters, but you got to take the trees out to do that. You know, and the gutters, that's a bike lane right in there. Some of the trees, you got a bit of a hump. You can see from the photos I produced in there. So we have dangerous conditions. It's a blighted area of the block. Weiss has done a beautiful job up there in the community. And unfortunately, if this isn't approved, they're not going to be able to build that part of the block, and it's going to remain as it is like that. And they don't want that. We don't want that. And when we started this project 19 years ago, we wanted to, beautify the entryway into LAX. And lastly, if these 6 trees come out, there's 36 new trees that are going to go in on that block, as well as other landscape elements, along that block. So I would urge you to consider it and move this project forward for the approval of these 6 trees so they can complete this project they've been working on for so many years. I'm available for any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Monfett. I'm going to go through the speaker cards. I'm also concerned about the potential liability for the city under the master plan if we're unable to follow it because of a ruling we make today. Mr. Sachs on number 2.
Yes, thank you. I don't have a horse in this race, but it's fascinating. What were you guys doing 20 years ago? 20 years to remove trees. Yeah, they keep growing. If the plans were submitted when Ruth Galanter, and I don't believe Maxine Waters was councilwoman, she was representative for the area, but if the plans were submitted 20 years ago, how does it take 20 years to remove, 60 trees? Of course they're going to keep growing. You mentioned something about the first speaker who got up and said, you mentioned something about them being liable, but the city pays for trip and falls. So if the community says, we want to save the city money, and we want to be able to have good sidewalks, and all we need to do is remove these trees. How come it takes 20 years? How come it takes 3 council people to get a simple job done like this? And how come they have to keep coming back to the Board of Public Works to go through this? It just is like, it's not even the wheels of justice turning slow. This isn't even turning. This is like rusting. You have to get giant cans of not Rust-Oleum, what's the spray you put on to make the wheels turn? WD-40.
WD-40, there you go.
And that would, you know what that would do? That would inhibit the growth of the trees. That would really work. And so it's sometimes, I appreciate the effort, but 20 years, these people have had kids that are going to be seniors in college in June. And they've been dealing with these trees because what? Nobody can do anything? Nobody can authorize the removal of trees? Yeah, it's gonna, but in 20 years, if they had planted them in 2002, they'd be 18 years old and they'd be tall trees maybe. Wow.
2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Ms. Scher.
Good morning, Commissioners, and I want to thank you for extending this to another hearing. I did get organized, and I got a petition from my neighbors. I have 27 signatures. I wanted to speak to this fortuitous day that we're having a hearing on trees. In my religion, it's a Jewish holiday. It's Tu B'Shevat. It is the annual celebration of the New Year of trees. So it's a very profound day to try and save trees. I'm not opposed to the Streetscape Association. 20 years ago, they were very good. The work they were doing then was very good. Every tree promise was planted. This has not been the case in recent years. We have empty tree spots on the arterials that the Streetscape has been working on. Where they dug up on Sepulveda 2 years ago, we have had neither tree nor sidewalk. I have personally walked in the street. So this is taking time, and it's costing me money. Sometimes I have to take the bus to get by there, so I've spent at least $200 of my own money getting around there into their delay. As you know, they're well funded from federal, state, and corporations, developers. I believe have to sole source contract with them. Now my asks are, I'm here to stand by the determination of the Forestry Department. If the execution of these trees is ordered, I would like a conditional based on performance and engaging the community. They don't engage the community. People are asking me, I have no idea. I'm not even sure which of the trees these are. I understand the master plan.
2 minutes.
How difficult it is to compromise an artistic vision, but the real world does factor.
Thank you, Ms. Scher. Ms. Scher, regarding the petition of names, did you inform any of these people about, you knew about the hearing today, you're obviously here.
Oh, yes.
Did you inform any of them about the ability to appear today?
Yes, I did. And we had a glorious discussion on next door. The community was engaged, much more than one person, as Mr. Ducksworth said. As you know, with public hearings, they're very intimidating and hard to locate the room. Someone was going to meet me.
Okay, thank you.
If you hold a hearing in the community, you will have a lot more people coming out. We just don't know what's going on.
We do that. We don't always have a lot more people coming out, but thank you. It will hand those around. Okay, David Zone. Mr. Zone, you are a board member of the applicant?
That's correct. I'm a board member of Westchester Streetscape Improvement Association.
Go ahead, sir.
So I'll keep it quick. I mean, I think Mr. Monfett really told the story better than I would be able to. But I've been a board member of WISA for going on 4 years now. I have seen some incredible improvements happen in the community as a result of the work that we've done. We have planted an incredible number of trees. Sure, there have been removals. But I just cannot stress enough that as part of the master plan that was agreed upon in the very beginning of this process, before I even came around, it makes no sense to stop when we're so close to the finish line. We have 6 trees to go in a massive effort that has, in my view, and I think many other people's view, really beautified the community in a way that 20 years ago, or even 10 or 6, people would not have imagined being possible. So I want to, lend my support, my strong support for allowing the removal of these 6 trees so that we can continue the work that we've been working for a long time on in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sue Pearvin.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sue Pearvin. I am a board member of Westchester Streetscape. I'm also a 26-year resident of Westchester. And I won't repeat what's been said, but I'm basically representing residents of Westchester who are in favor of completing the project that was started years ago, so that it's done in a cohesive manner. Right now, there's just like one piece of the puzzle left. And if Streetscape is unable to complete that because of retaining those trees, it's going to be just a blight on the neighborhood. I submitted some comments by residents and a couple of, one in particular who lives behind one of the ficus trees on the corner of 79th. She and her neighbors refer to it as the Godzilla tree because it's encroaching, imposing, and wrecking their properties. It's already affected their walls. It's cracking some of the block walls. And they'd be delighted to have the trees removed and have the sidewalks completed. Another resident who loves to walk said she's horrified when she sees mothers with baby carriages having to go out onto Sepulveda Boulevard to get around these ficus trees. She even saw someone with a walker get onto Sepulveda, going toward with traffic to get back on the sidewalk to be able to proceed. So there is definitely a safety issue there too. There are a few people who oppose removing those trees, and we would have loved to have kept them if it was feasible to do so, but it's just not a reasonable thing that we would keep trees that are so damaging to the sidewalks because there's no way we could maintain those. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Samek? You're here on behalf of yourself, not WISIA.
I'm sorry?
You're just here on behalf of yourself.
I don't really know. Thank you for listening to me, for this opportunity. The only beef that I have in this discussion is personal, because the trees that are growing over my lots.
Over
my lots. I own 3 of those lots, 196, 197, and 198. 196 is adjacent to the house that I've lived in since April of 1978. Now, ficus number 3 overhangs by more than 3/4 of the width of the lot, kills my trees, and prevents me from building my own canopy, if canopy preservation is the issue. Other than that, I have no beef. Oh, sorry. We are the only block, 7800 to 7900, the only block on Sepulveda that has cable service running through the canopy. Everywhere else, there is no canopy interfering with the cables. Cable companies come in, and with little tweezers, cut a few branches, cut a few leaves, and leave. If any one of the branches falls, cable service, phone service, internet service will be disrupted. In closing, I am totally happy with the work of WSIA. Next door, I counted the numbers. As of last night, 26 people were in favor of abrogating this denial. only 14 people, and I don't know how many are on the petition. Only 14 people
2 minutes.
were in favor of the denial. 4 people were nowhere. I've exhausted my time.
Thank you, sir. And look, we appreciate the next door venue and avenue of communication, but we can't. You can have a seat, sir. Thank you. But the reason, and I appreciate the petition. The petition says, "We, the undersigned, petition in support of living mature trees, and we support the recommendation of the Department of Forestry to deny permit application to fell these 6 trees." That's what it says. I mean, that's why we want people to come to the hearing. It's hard to talk about context in a statement of "we, the undersigned, petition in support of living mature trees." I don't know anybody that doesn't. Did I miss anybody in our speaker list? Okay, Mr. Benuelos?
Morning.
Hi, Mr. Benuelos. Thank you for being here again. Has Streets LA received any further opposition or further support or opposition one way or the other beyond what we've heard today on this item?
No. Outside of Community Forestry Advisory Committee and what we heard today, no.
Okay, I've addressed the Community Forest Advisory Committee from my perspective. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Davis.
In terms of this issue, I appreciate, Mr. President, you giving us an additional day to kind of digest some of the major issues here. But in terms of my position, I haven't really changed it based upon what has occurred in the chronology of time. We had, again, a committee that we weren't here during that time, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that the City Council and the Board of Public Works supported a plan and that we were committed to and we agreed to following that plan for the Westchester Association to move forward. And when I look, even as our experience here, there have been numerous occasions where ficus trees have caused adverse impact in neighborhoods and they have been removed. And this is no exception. It's really clear, even before Mr. Mafat brought this information in today. And this is as clear as it can get about the adverse impact of these ficus trees. And I certainly don't have to argue it for anybody that's been anywhere near City Hall. They know that ficus trees over time have been a very serious problem as it relates to the welfare and health of our sidewalks. And so that's certainly a case that doesn't have to be argued. Having said all of that, Ruth Galanta was there, Congresswoman Waters, and quite actually 20 years ago, Congresswoman Waters was still representing the Westchester area, just for a matter of fact. And so these individuals with whom we have had conversations with, our commitments of the past, we still need to do what we said that we were going to do, and we have to, as a Board of Public Works, take into consideration the history of ficus trees in this city in general, and in particular the impact of ficus trees in this area. And so, Mr. President, I support us moving forward to do what we said we were going to do on paper, to allow the Westchester Street Improvement Association to move forward on behalf of not only the residents of Westchester, but move forward on behalf of the support that they have received in the past of this city. And so, as far as I am concerned, I am ready to move forward. I've seen it done numerous times in this very boardroom in various areas of town, from our very Department or Bureau of Street Services, specifically our Urban Forestry Division, come in and have trees removed that were buckling sidewalks in various areas of this city. This is a compelling case, not any different than those other cases that they have brought from us where we have removed ficus trees. So again, I am for moving forward and supporting this association because the evidence for me is clear.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Caloza.
Thank Thank you, President James. Just first wanted to thank all these speakers and stakeholders again for making time to attend today's hearing and for participating in our process. It's really nice to hear from everybody on all sides. I had a few follow-up questions for you, Hector, from the last hearing. The first one was in relation to the tree report that was mentioned by the Westchester Association and Streets LA receiving a copy since they came to a different determination than Streets LA. Did you receive a copy of that report?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And can you just give us a summary about, why our or the Streets LA determination is different from that? If we could hear your summary on that.
Streets LA is trying to preserve, we endeavor to preserve trees, mature, healthy trees whenever possible. In this case, we have 6 mature, healthy Indian laurel fig trees. The Indian laurel fig trees is a species that provides a wealth of benefits, environmental benefits, our carbon sequestration, wildlife habitat, and shade, and stormwater mitigation, a plethora of environmental benefits. And in this case here is also an opportunity here to meander the sidewalk. There's, as previously mentioned, we did mention in the report that those 12 feet approximately, however, we went out there and physically measured, and it did, in fact, we were wrong, and it was actually 8 feet 6 inches approximately between the abutting neighbors' property fences and the edge of the sidewalks. However, there's still plenty of room to move the sidewalks. If we were given 5 feet of sidewalk width, you're going to be about 10 feet away from the curb face, which is plenty of room, in our opinion, in Urban Forestry's opinion. I speak on behalf of the division, that the trees can remain in place. Contrary to what Mr. Monfett has stated in his report, we feel that the trees can be retained in place and sustain minimal impact for sidewalk repair. We have performed several locations where we have, in fact, root pruned the trees, and we have retained them in place, and they're still remaining as we speak today. There's a very large project there on Grandview Boulevard between National and Palms, where we root pruned several large, very large ficus trees, and they remain today. That work was performed over 15 years ago. Right, so the street services has, like I mentioned previously, we endeavor to retain trees whenever possible. And the findings within Mr. Monfett's report, if their sidewalks are going to remain in their current place, then yes, I would agree that the trees have to be removed. But being that we have an opportunity here to meander within the right-of-way, there is opportunity to retain the trees in place.
Thank you for that summary and for restating Streets LA opinion. And this is just as additional context for my colleagues too, just because I think the pictures, were helpful in seeing the condition of the sidewalks, but just did want to put that in context. And I think, Hector, you can explain a little bit about this too, is that, we both sit on the Sidewalk Repair Program Committee, and seeing sidewalks in this condition are not new, unfortunately. It is, and Hector, please correct me or add to it, that Streets LA often faces sidewalks that looks like this, and that you do, as you mentioned, do your very best to root prune them and use other solutions, but that this is not a new picture that we're seeing of the sidewalk condition. So I did just want to be fair and state that this is a common scenario for you to be in.
Yes, and not just with the ficus trees, but several other mature trees as they mature, especially when they're planted in spaces that are very small for their growing capacity.
Can you also, and this was brought up by one of our speakers, I think it was Ms. Scher, talking about some of the empty tree wells that are in this area. And if we were to move forward with today's approval of moving forward with these removals, what does that tree replacement enforcement look like in terms of Streets LA making sure that the replacements do happen? If you can just elaborate.
Well, on these voluntary repairs, A lot of the replacements are performed by that. We will not sign off on their permits if they have anything pending with the Bureau of Streets or the Building and Safety and other city departments. We will not clear the conditions. This one here it's a little more difficult, the enforcement, right, where we do follow up at times with applicants when they're coming down to replacements after they have repaired the sidewalk. And when tree replacements are not performed, then we pursue enforcement through our investigation enforcement within the division.
And if somebody wanted to reach out to Streets LA, if it's not happening in a timely manner, they could go to your public counter, right?
Yes.
Okay. And can you just share some of the locations, just in case it's helpful for some of the stakeholders here? Or where your public counters are, or at least the website. So there's a few public counters. Ms. Scher, if I can just share with you to follow up on this in case it's helpful in the future, where you can go and ask about status of these types of things. And we can share the website with you as well for the locations. The other last item I did want to ask you about is it was also mentioned that this is obviously a public safety issue in terms of if we were to leave these trees in this condition, and I don't know the extent of which we're able to share any of this at this hearing, but are we aware of any situations of any trip and falls along this block?
I am not aware of the trip and falls on this block at this time.
Okay. I'm done with my questions for now. Thank you, Hector.
Thank you, Commissioner Caloza. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you, President James. I have just two questions, if you can just clarify for us. If we keep the 6 trees, if you can just clarify or provide more context, Streets LA will come in and do some repair work on this street, on this curb?
Not to my knowledge, not this time. I'm not aware of these locations on the Bureau of Engineering Sidewalk Repair Program list.
Okay. All right. So then if we keep the 6 trees, we'll just keep that curb as is?
Until funding is provided for the repairs, yes.
Okay. And if we move forward with the removal of the trees, the Westchester Association will replace those 6 trees with 18 trees? Is that correct?
Yes.
And they will make the repairs?
Yes, they are requesting to remove the trees so they can make the repairs.
Okay. When you say that, going back to my first question, you say that if we keep the 6 trees, and they'll be able to make repairs around those trees, is that correct?
They can, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Villegas, I think your questions were excellent. But you've put an issue on the table for me that I want to summarize to make sure I understood it, as I think you just made the point. Mr. Benuelos, so if the Westchester Streetscape Improvement Association, if they don't do this work, which is their option, if this tree removal is not granted, there's no funding right now for Streets LA to come in and do the repair work on those curbs.
Not right now. As I mentioned previously, I'm not sure if this is in the queue with the Bureau of Engineering Sidewalk Repair Program either.
That's a problem. And part of the reason it's a problem is because of the discussion we've had today. Because we've made it very clear that the city has the option by voting to allow these trees to be removed. We have the option of having these repairs done for us. And if we vote away that option and something were to happen along the lines that would subject the city to liability, I would use this hearing as Exhibit A on the opportunity the city had to do these repairs and passed on it. So along with Commissioner Davis, that's why I don't think we have much of a choice here. We have I think we need to grant the permit for the removal of the remaining 6 trees. And when I say that, and that'll be my motion, but when I say that, Mr. Benuelos, and I see Mr. Tyson here, by all means, I want to encourage Streets LA to continue doing what you're doing. I've been here now almost 7 years, and I don't think we have ever not followed the Bureau's recommendation to deny a permit request like we're doing today. In the 6.5 years I've been here, this is the first time. And I'll talk in a minute about why this situation is unique. What we have done in the past on occasion, well, and we've worked hard at it, is to save trees even after an item comes to the Board of Public Works. And we've done it through continued hearings, and we've done it through essentially mediating negotiations between differing parties, and we've come up with compromise time after time after time again. I think Jamie Hall has a calculation of the number of trees that we've saved that he's, on the issues he's worked on alone, never mind other folks that have been here, including Gideon Krakoff and others. But today, this situation is different. Normally, we see a recommendation for denial, that's it. But this issue comes with an organization that is providing the repairs at their cost to no taxpayer expense. They are following what has been a long-term master plan that's been in place. We have significant organized support from the surrounding community, and we have potential liability issues in 2 areas that I hear, potential, not necessarily existing, but potential, in the master plan issue as well as any kind of slip and fall or other damage issue. For those reasons, and by the way, we provided an additional, I don't know if it was 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, whatever it was, extension from the original hearing to today's hearing for there to be some organized opposition to come and present to the Board of Public Works. And we don't have that to a level at this point that would convince me to not go ahead and make this motion today. So that's the motion. And Commissioner Davis, if I stepped on your motion, I would let you join it. Okay, so that's the second from Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Villegas.
I'm wondering if the Westchester Association, the Street Improvement Association, would be willing to provide bigger trees, 48-inch trees, instead of 24-inch
Mr. Duckworth.
trees.
Yes, sir. We can provide large trees. As you look at the whole boulevard, the trees that we've put in, which were specified by your urban forestry staff, by the way, and that's the pattern that we've used, are really very well grown up, but we're happy to come in with big trees. We totally agree. One of the things that I would add, and just the reason for the delay, we haven't been able to plant the east side because we're held up in a water connection. We're held up in terms of getting a traffic control plan approved by DOT. We're number 279, I'm told, as of last week, in the list. And so that's been a problem for a long time. And then on the other side, on the west side, we're not able to finish that because of a traffic control permit. And there is an existing permit that LADWP has open, and they don't want to issue another one over the top of that. So right now, we've got somebody at BOE that's trying to help us, Mr. Wu, is trying to help us work cooperatively and have LADWP agree that we can come in and work sensitively with them. So we're trying as hard as we can to get that done.
Thank you, sir. That'll be my motion. So the motion is, so we're clear, Dr. Campos, the motion would be to, we've already approved the CEQA on,
You would have to reapprove
Yeah,
the
on
findings, or
number
make a
one.
new finding again.
so we're approving paragraph number 1. We are denying the denial
So in
on
essence,
number 2.
you're approving.
Which means we're approving the permit to remove those additional 6 trees.
Correct.
That's my motion. It's a second by Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Okay, with that objection, that'll be the order on agenda item number 2. Mr. Tyson, before you step out, one thing. I want the message to Streets LA to be that we greatly appreciate the work that Streets LA is doing. Just because we voted against the recommendation on the Bureau on this, it's the only time we've ever done that in my recollection. And it's just because of those special circumstances. We greatly appreciate, Tim, the new focus, and I don't even think new is the wrong word, the accelerated and extenuated focus on saving trees in our community. It's greatly appreciated by everyone.
We appreciate that, Commissioners and President James. We will continue our plight in trying to save trees whenever possible. That's what we're here to do. And sorry that these trees were not salvageable in your opinion. I believe they are. By moving the sidewalk so far over, we're a mile away from what the trees were doing on Cherokee, and we're saving those. I realize the curbs and gutters are a big deal. That's where the most root pruning would have to take place, and the trees could be crown reduced. However, they are large growing trees. They will continue to grow, and they would have to be root pruned, and all this kind of stuff, maintenance-wise, would have to be taken care of until they succumb someday. But by doing it this way, you're opening up large planting sites for future trees to be planted as well. So we understand the logistics of the curb and the gutter, and voluntary improvements are hard to come by, and we need the community to spend their money on fixing things and making it better because the city doesn't have a lot. So with all those things, we understand that, but we will continue to save trees.
Right. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it, Mr. Tyson. Commissioner Davis.
I just want to add that I hope that we are putting some research into the kinds of trees that we plant moving forward, and looking at what potential that tree will have as it fits into the environment, so that we don't get a lot of ficuses, and even though we won't be here years from now, that we would repeat this situation, because we've got ficus trees not just in Westchester, all over this city, that are causing that kind of a damage. So I hope that these replacement trees, I just want to underscore, are the kind of trees we've researched that will fit in a way that the next generation won't have that problem to come back again in 20 years or so.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. And any issue sending number 2 forthwith?
Just for clarification, Mr. President, Fernando Campos, Executive Officer, the intent of the motion was to approve or make the findings for recommendation number 1, number 2, to modify it to approve the permit. However, just to get some clarity on the replacement of the 12 trees, was that to be 24-inch box or for 48-inch box?
They agreed to the larger trees. Correct, Mr. Duckworth? No, she asked
48.
for larger trees.
If you can come to the mic, please.
Yes, sir. The largest we've planted has been 24-inch box, and in the past that was good enough. But if what you would like is larger, we can investigate that.
Would
Mr.
you work with
Monfett has provided guidance that the smaller tree is better because it grows better. It's the bigger the tree, the more iffy the survivability is, and so that's why we've stayed with the 24.
How about, let me ask this for Commissioner Villegas, since you put that on the table. Would you be satisfied with Streets LA working as the advisor to WISIA, the Westchester Streetscape Improvement Association, on what Streets LA thinks is the most beneficial size tree for the area? Okay.
Perfect.
So that's what we would ask. That would be the condition on that.
That would be fine. Thank you.
So we would add that new condition to have the Bureau of Street Services or Streets LA to work with WISIA on the type and the size of the tree.
Correct,
as
and that
determined by them.
recommendation will come from Streets LA.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then my only final comment is to the Community Forest Advisory Committee. They are a very important part of our urban canopy process. And I know that our city forest officer has been working with them extensively. I know that members of our Board of Public Works do as well. My only offer would be I would come sit personally with the Community Forest Advisory Committee to let them know what kind of response I think would be more beneficial for use in the board for their future attempts to communicate with us when they can't appear in person. Because I think there's a way for them to do that. So that'll be it on number 2. Thank you, sir. On agenda item number 3 and number 4, those are continued, colleagues. That was a day I was not here. I had to leave early that day. Friday, January 31st, Commissioner Garcia and Commissioner Davis. Who was it? Okay, so let me call number 3, and then Commissioner Garcia, you can let us know. Should I call them together? Okay, I'll call 3 and 4 together, and then Commissioner Garcia will set us up on where we left off that resulted in the continuance, and we'll move from there. Agenda item number 3, Council District 4, 5, and 14, contract termination for Servitech Solutions Incorporated, West Side Unit 3 Series to Multiple High Voltage Conversion, fiscal year 2016-17, recommending that the board first declare Servitech Solutions to be in involuntary default of the contract. Secondly, terminate the West Side Unit 3 Series to Multiple High Voltage Conversion fiscal year 16-17 contract awarded to Servitech. And third, authorize contract administration and street lighting as well as the city attorney to contact the Guarantee Company of North America USA and its attorneys to negotiate project completion. And then agenda item number 4 is a contract termination, Bel Air Beverly Crest Unit 1 Series to Multiple High Voltage Conversion fiscal year, same year, 16-17, recommending that the board again declare Servitech Solutions to be in involuntary default of the contract, to be in voluntary default of the contract. Secondly, terminate the Bel Air Beverly Crest Unit 1 Series to Multiple High Voltage Conversion fiscal year 2016-17 contract awarded to Servitech. And third, authorize contract administration and street lighting as well as the city attorney to contact the Guarantee Company of North America and its attorneys to negotiate project completion. And Mr. Sachs, you have a card in on number 4. Okay, thank you. How much time does Mr. Sachs have left?
Mr. Sachs has 2 minutes and 4 seconds left.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, sir. So another situation where somebody from the public side essentially wants to do the right thing and they're being held up by the city. The questions I would have would be when the company came before or asked to be released from this contract, when did that actually occur? And at that point, when did the city say, you know what, if they can't do the work for some reason, and they're letting us know by telling the truth that they actually can't do the work, why don't we get together with the people that would be, I guess, their insurance company or their guarantee and find out that we can get somebody to pick up the pace as soon as they drop the project. Now you want to authorize them or give them authorization to not do the work, which is what they don't want to do, and then you're going to enter into negotiations with another company to find out what? To get a new contractor to come in and do the work that they didn't finish. So essentially, I don't know how long this project was going to be. 20 years, Mr. Davis said, we're not going to be here in 20 years. You weren't here 20 years ago when the tree project started either. So the idea that it takes so long for simple projects is mind-boggling. And yet, stupidity will fly through the city council like a rocket. It's just absolutely amazing.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, President James. Yes, this is a continued item from, I think about a week ago. If I'm not mistaken, President James had to leave early, and we were right in the middle of understanding this item. And we did extend it because I think we lacked the briefings and we lacked information that was really important to make sure that we made the right decision and that we agreed on the best thing for everybody, for the city, for our department, and for obviously the small business owner. So this is why we're here again. We took a week to better understand the situation, and given that, we've gone to a really thorough process of understanding both sides. So having said that, I'm going to have Sefi kind of get us to where we're at now, even with the new findings that we've had for the past week, and just kind of lead us to that place again. So Sefi.
So thank you, Sefi Wiles.
Commissioner Garcia, go ahead. Hi.
Good morning, Sefi Wiles, Bureau of Contract Administration. Just to give some background on why we are here today, in March 2017, this board awarded 4 street lighting contracts to Servitech Solutions Incorporated. Our Bureau is recommending the approval of the request before you today, and in March, the notice to proceed was issued. However, on this contract before you, the West Side Unit 3, it took 5 months for Servitech to begin the work. It's unfortunate that that happened, and to date, we still have only 40% of this project completed. There was a summary sheet that was presented to you that shows the prompt payments that were made to the contractor. There still remains monies in the contract to finish the work, and that's why we request the approval of this board so that we can move forward to negotiate with the surety so that this job can be closed out. Thank you.
So how did we get to and do I have a representative from Servitech here?
Unfortunately, I don't see one today, and I did make a call on Friday stating that we are.
They were here last Friday, right? I mean, sorry, the 31st?
Correct.
I heard that there was, and I heard parts of the presentation. I didn't hear all of it, unfortunately.
And then to add to what's up before you today, since the hearing of last time, Servitech has now lost their license again. It's under suspension, so they can no longer work in our public right-of-way.
Okay, so they've lost their suspension again, and they're not here today? Is there am I missing something, any need for further discussion?
Not at all.
Okay.
And just to add to that, on Wednesday, we'll be back in front of the board requesting termination for cause for the last contract before.
Well, I'm sorry that they've undergone these tough times. But we hear you, Ms. Wiles. Commissioner Colozo.
Thank you, President James. Thanks for the updates and for giving a summary, also to Commissioner Garcia for the last hearing. For the motion that's coming before us on Wednesday, will BCA also notify Servitech that is happening?
And I did that also on Friday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. I just wanted to clarify, since this is not the last of this item that we'll hear.
Yes, we'll wait to see if it shows up on Wednesday.
Okay. I don't have any additional questions since we've discussed this at length. Thank you.
I would just add that I think it was the right decision for this board Friday before last to give this additional time because we got an answer in the meantime, and here we are. And I appreciate the effort of everybody on what was, I'm sure, a long hearing. So I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 3. Seconded by Commissioners Garcia and Villegas. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 3. Any issue sending 3 forthwith? We'll send 3 forthwith. We can call number 4 as well. My motion would be to adopt agenda item number 4 as well. Seconded by Commissioners Garcia and Villegas. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 4 as well. Any issue sending 4 forthwith? We'll send 4 forthwith. Thank you, Ms. Wiles.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 1 will be a tree removal, Council District 3, 22-352 through 22-422, West San Luis. Is it San Luis? San Luis? It's not St. Louis, it's San Luis. Recommending that the board first find under the California Public Resources Code, Section 21166, and the State's Environmental Quality Act guidelines on the basis of substantial evidence contained in the whole record, that since the city's prior certification of the mitigated negative declaration, that's the MND, there have been no changes to the project, changes with respect to the circumstances under which the project is being undertaken, or new information of substantial importance concerning the project, which cause new significant environmental effects or a substantial increase in the severity of previously identified significant effects, and therefore no subsequent MND, supplemental MND, or other analysis is required for the project. Secondly, specify that Streets LA Urban Forestry Division, located at 1149 South Broadway, is the custodian of the documents or other material that constitute the record of proceedings upon which the board's decision is based. And third, review and approve the request for a fee permit for the removal of 9 street trees, which include 3 ironbark trees. I don't remember hearing much about ironbark trees. And blue gum trees and 1 California pepper tree. Tree replacements are required. And Mr. Banuelos, do we see ironbark trees very often?
Yes, there's several throughout the city. Yes. Yeah, good morning, President James, Commissioner of Bureau Representatives, Mr. Jordan, and Dr. Campos. Hector Banuelos with Streets LA Urban Forestry Division. What we have before us is a request from a developer to remove 8 street trees for required roadway widening at 22352 through 22422 West Avenue, San Luis, and the Community of Woodland Hills in Council District 3. As a condition to construct a 19-unit single-family residence subdivision, the developer is required to implement several street improvements, including street widening of Avenue San Luis. They are required to widen from a 15-foot half roadway to a 22-foot half roadway. It will severely impact 8 trees growing within the public right-of-way. There are 4 blue gums, 3 ironbark, and 1 California pepper tree that seem to be planted without any continuity. I mean, the trees have never been maintained by Streets LA. They're considered almost to be like private property, but they happen to be in the public right-of-way. There's a hillside there adjacent to the property where they're growing. And so the required street widening, any improvements are going to severely impact those trees and require their removal. The trees are fair to poor condition. There's a lot of dieback on several of the branches on the trees. And their growth is not, trees are not desirable to remain. So therefore, we are recommending that the board approve our request for the developer to receive a permit to remove the trees. If approved, the trees will be replaced with 16 Brisbane box trees to be planted in the public right-of-way. The site is large enough where the trees of the site can accommodate the replacement trees. The Council District 3, the Community Forestry Advisory Committee, and the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment were informed of the tree removal permit request, and it's Council office has not indicated that they are in support or nor object to the project.
Okay, and you've heard nothing from any other organizations around it?
There was 1 inquiry or 2 inquiries within the tree removal notification, but I'm unaware if they're either in opposition or in support of the project.
They were inquiries?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 1, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 1. Thank you, sir. Any issue sending number 1 forthwith? We'll send number 1 forthwith. That takes us to our meeting minutes from the meeting on Monday, February 3rd, 2020. Is there a second to my motion on the meeting minutes by Commissioner Garcia? Dr. Campos, were you missing something?
No.
Okay.
I think we've cleared the desk.
Oh, this says February. I've got February 3rd. Do you need February 3rd or February 12th?
February 3rd.
Okay. I've got February 3rd right here. February 12th hasn't happened yet. I know. Yeah, it's Wednesday. But February 3rd is what you need for 2020. So that's my motion, seconded by Commissioner Garcia. Any objection? Without objection, that'll be the order. Colleagues, before we leave, and we'll do a more proper adjournment in memory, but I did want to mention the very sad passing over the weekend of Oscar Winslow, who was the president of the union that represents most of our city attorneys in the city of Los Angeles. Very sudden over the weekend, and we don't have a whole lot of information at this point, but we will put together a proper adjournment. But I did want to mention that sad and shocking news. So we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.